They're both hugely responsible for the 6 Super Bowl wins. I don't obviously, that's why it's an interesting question. But the answer is clearly Bill Belichick is more responsible. First of all, Damien, what you said, you know better than anyone. You got to leave New England to get paid. And so Brady eventually left. But baseball, as I've always said, is about the GM. Basketball is about the players. Football is about the coach. Of course, all three are about everybody, all three. But if you had to say who's most responsible for success in those sports, that's how it goes. And we're talking about football, and that's the coach. But not only that, he's also the GM. So he acquires the players that he wants, and then he puts them in the best position to win. He's doing it all. Belichick is the one most responsible. You know, those Super Bowls that you mentioned, Stephen A., almost every one of them was decided by like a field goal. So as Dan Orlovsky said about Teddy Bridgewater, and he's right, he keeps you in the games, he keeps you competitive, and Brady does the same thing. But what structure is in place that those games come down to the wire? Not just the quarterback, not just the defense. It's all those things combined. The players you acquire and how you coach them up. In any championship run like the one the Patriots have had, the best player, the quarterback in this case, has to be an extension of the coach on the field. Tim Duncan for Greg Popovich, Bill Russell for Red Auerbach, Derek Jeter for Joe Torre. I get that. And Tom Brady for Bill Belichick. It's a good relationship that way. But when you have to identify who is most responsible, most is the coach, who's also the GM, Bill Belichick.
Yeah, listen, I think we're splitting hairs here because we're talking about two of the greatest at their respective quote unquote positions ever, in Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. But I'm gonna give a slight edge to Bill Belichick, and here's why. Okay, as great as we talk about Tom Brady, you have to remember Tom Brady didn't just land into the National Football League and became who he is today. He had to be developed. The Patriot way, the culture had to be developed. Okay. Bill Belichick is the guy. He is the GM. He is the one voice. He's the one that instilled the culture, put the roster together. He's the one that's been at the forefront of a lot of trends that we've seen in those 20 years, whether it's 2 tight ends with Gronk and Hernandez, whether it was the prolific offense that we saw with Tom Brady and Randy Moss, going to ground and pound against the Kansas City Chiefs to get themselves to the Super Bowl, shutting out the Los Angeles Rams in the Super Bowl. There's a lot of things that goes into the success that the Patriots have had in 20 years. And a big reason why is because of Bill Belichick and his genius as being the head coach, away and beyond any other coach in the National Football League.
Well, see, the thing about it is that it's hard to disagree with that, Damien. I'll give you credit for that. But I think the thing for me is that what were we saying about Bill Belichick before Tom Brady came along? Things were growing in Cleveland before he was let go there. He went back. He was a defensive coordinator in New York, ultimately landed in New England after, you know, the whole Bill Parcells thing went awry there in New York, and he didn't end up staying and being the successor to Bill Parcells with the New York Jets. But then he arrives in New England. He has Drew Bledsoe. What kind of success were they having at that particular moment in time? Tom Brady comes in there, and let's remember, a multitude of teams passed on Tom Brady for 5 rounds. 5 rounds. So he landed in their lap and what have you. And if I remember correctly, you know, they thought so much of Tom Brady that they went out, and I think I'm trying to remember whether it was Damon Heward or so, I forgot who it was, but they signed somebody to $1 million for 1 year to be Drew Bledsoe's backup, and then all of a sudden Tom Brady played slightly better than him, and it went from there. All I'm trying to say is that you could say luck had something to do with it. I guess Bill Belichick deserves credit for that, but in the end, what is Tom Brady saying? Look at what I've done. If we really want to get down to brass tacks, Tom Brady, if there was any friction between him and Bill Belichick, you know why. It's because Tom Brady is saying, look what I've done, and look what I've done for you. And if you're Bill Belichick, you're like, hell no, you didn't. I did this. And that's why you had no problems sitting there and telling Robert Kraft or anybody else, I don't mind Tom Brady leaving. Yeah. He said all the right things in his statements. He wrote the right things. It sounded very glowing, very beautiful. I don't doubt that he meant it. But we haven't seen Bill Belichick in front of the cameras Congress saying such a thing about losing Tom Brady. Usually somebody of this magnitude, you're actually having a press conference to say goodbye.
There's no assembled media.
Anything like that. Haven't heard about anything like that.
There's no assembled media right now because these are strange times.
Yeah, that's true.
But let me say
That's
this.
fair.
This is the way I would put it to like sum up what we're seeing here. And the Brady-Belichick marriage for 20 years, the most fruitful in the history of football. And you could argue sports, given the nature of football, how unlikely it is to go to 9 Super Bowls and win 6 in a 2-decade span. I'll say this. Belichick was going to have a lot of success, period, in that time with New England. You could swap Brady out with an average quarterback. Belichick would have still usually had a winning record, usually gone to the playoffs. I'll bet you he would have won a couple of Super Bowls. If you swap Brady out with a lesser quarterback but a good one, I'll bet you Belichick goes to 4 or 5 Super Bowls, wins a couple. Now, the fact is he had Tom Brady, so they went to 9 and won 6. But Belichick was going to have a lot of success, period.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.